Hey guys, this is Thomas from bookbeam.io, and in this video what I want to do is talk about IngramSpark. Now, IngramSpark received like a surge of popularity around mid to late summer of 2019, so last summer, and I feel like what was talked about a lot was like the main process, like it all talked about in a fairly kind of introductory beginner kind of way, like how do you upload your book to it, and so on and so forth. But what I would have appreciated, and something I feel like nobody has really talked that much about, is the sales and the marketing side of IngramSpark. So this basically is what this video is going to be about. I'll share my insights about IngramSpark, what I've learned so far, everything that I've learned so far. I'm still learning, but it's been pretty fun so far, like checking out this whole new platform, this whole new kind of distribution network that is IngramSpark. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So what I really love about IngramSpark, kind of the biggest thing that I enjoy about having, another pretty significant kind of distributor out there besides Amazon, is the possibility for diversification. As you see, our friend SpongeBob here is showing us. So yeah, diversification is really important. Now, not just in like other businesses and whatnot, but within your own self-publishing business. Amazon is great. Amazon is really powerful, but something that you do want to have is diversification in other kind of areas. Is once you succeed on Amazon, is that diversification piece is something that you really want in your business. Now let's talk a little bit more about the results. So what can you expect? Now with IngramSpark, as I've been on it for a few months now, probably since September roughly. So how many months is that? September, October, November, December. So that's 4 full months, 4 and something at the time of recording. And as for the results, so what can you expect? What will IngramSpark do for you? Will it match your results on your inside of Amazon, on Amazon? No. The answer that I would say is it's no. It won't match what you're doing on Amazon. Amazon is just so big and so powerful that Ingram most likely won't match it, but it can come close to it in some cases as I've seen in the space. Now, why is it so? Why is there no like direct blanket answer? That's because everything is niche dependent. So things will vary, your results will vary based on your niches and your books and products and whatever else. So will it match your KDP results? No, it won't. And then the next question, is it worth your time at all? Yes, it absolutely is. So it's not as big as Amazon, but it's definitely powerful enough for you to spend the time of putting your books on it. So when you put your books up on IngramSpark, what you're gonna see is a spike in sales. That's what happened for me, and that's what has happened for, it looks like, most of the other self-publishers that have gone on IngramSpark. The first thing that you see is like a major spike in sales when your books are first available. A lot of the distributors, like kind of, as I imagine, they're buying them, they're testing them out, and some of them are also putting them up on Amazon where they already are. So yeah, but the sales spike, don't get too excited. It was kind of funny looking around in the space. Like people are getting really excited when they see the spike. They think, wow, they're so smart, such geniuses, and this kind of sales volume will keep going throughout time. But that's not really what happens. It does kind of level out a little bit later on, and I did also see jumps in, as expected, around late to mid to late November and December, kind of early to mid December. So which was quite expected. So it's that holiday sales rush that's going on, and the distributors are buying up the books to kind of prepare and be ready and stocked up for that holiday time. So that's pretty much as expected. So, and when it comes to the distribution, the sales distribution between different kind of parts of IngramSpark, between US, UK, and the other markets in Europe, as expected, USA has a strong lead, and it's followed by the UK, also as expected, and Germany. Now, an interesting thing that I've also noticed is that translations do tend to perform quite well. My guess for that, why that is is because there's not that many translations, not that many books available for the other markets. It's kind of like a pretty empty space that's growing. So if you have some translations already available and you haven't put them on IngramSpark, or if you're not on IngramSpark yet, just do it. It will pay off, and it's such an easy thing to do. Ideally, you should train a VA for it, but I'll get into that in just a moment. Next up, let's talk a little bit about ISBNs. So you do need ISBNs to be able to publish on IngramSpark. So for USA, if you have registered your company in the USA, or if you're just from the USA, a US citizen, you will need to pay for ISBNs, and you will need to pay quite a lot. In my opinion, like too much. Conversely, in Canada, the ISBNs are free. That's really, really cool. And in the UK, you do have to pay for your ISBN registrations. When it comes to the quantity, it really depends on how many books you have available under your portfolio. Ideally, I would recommend, as you see here in the chart, ideally I would recommend that you go for 100, because if you look at it, one ISBN costs you $125 for the US. 10 ISBNs will cost you $29 for one, for a total of $295. But 100 ISBNs cost you $575, which if you look at just the upfront payment, it can be quite an investment, but per ISBN it becomes really, really cheap. It's just $5 or just under $6, we could say. Compare that to 125. That's far better deal. 5 per ISBN. But again, it only makes sense if you have that many books already out there, or close to that. If you consider the print version plus, maybe you convert all of them to hardcovers. So gotta kind of take that into account. For 1,000 it becomes even more cheap. So it's $1.50 for one ISBN. So it's really, really cheap. To be frank, I don't really like this pricing. They've priced it a bit like a-holes. But, take it for what it is. It is what it is, and you do need your ISBNs for Ingram. So how many books should you put on IngramSpark? IS, I put for short. Well, I would say you should put all of them. All of them. It just makes sense to approach this kind of, tackling and moving your products, your books to IngramSpark. It just makes sense to kind of have this in bulk mentality, and do both paperback, all of them just in paperback. Don't sort too much unless you're on a budget. Don't sort too much, just throw them all up there. That's what I recommend. And later what you can do, you can also do hardback formats for each of your books. And I highly recommend that you teach a virtual assistant. If you don't have one already, I recommend that you go out and hire one and teach them to do this. Like, it will really pay off, and I don't think you really want to spend so much time just uploading books. It's a process that can be fairly easily taught to a VA. So I really recommend that you do that, and get someone that you can trust with your passwords and whatnot, and thank me later. It's really worth it, and you can dedicate your time to other things. If you're strapped for money and you can't really do like all of them right now, or you're strapped for time or whatever else, I would recommend that you go with the 80-20 approach. So, and what I mean by that in this scenario is you just go with the books that are selling the best on Amazon already. You see their sales figures, they're popular, the niche is good. You just start with those. You tackle your best-selling books, you put them on IngramSpark, and then you slowly maybe put up the books that aren't selling that well for you. And that's kind of how you can make the most out of limited resources. Another question, kind of backtracking a little bit, but that people seem to get confused about is, can I have my book both on Amazon and on IngramSpark? And the answer is yes, absolutely. You can and should have them on both platforms. What people get confused with here is just the KDP Select thing, which only applies for Kindle books. Basically, there's a clause in KDP Select. If you want the bonuses that come with KDP Select, you have to agree to have your ebook, your Kindle book, exclusively on Amazon and nowhere else. But this doesn't apply to your print books. You have the rights to distribute them everywhere and anywhere. So you should use that. Then when it comes to converting your book to hardcover, your interior stays the same. What you do need to have a different kind of format for is the cover. The cover needs to be formatted in a specific way. What we did, we just found somebody on Fiverr to do that in bulk for us. And when you do things in bulk, you can get much better deals. So either find somebody on Fiverr who has experience with it. There might be some people out there who have experience specifically with IngramSpark, or you can just find somebody on Upwork, again, who either has the experience already or who you can train to kind of do the hardcovers according to IngramSpark's specifications already. So next, a big question is, I think, what sells? What sells on IngramSpark? What is going to perform well? And generally speaking, the answer is that anything that performs well on Amazon will also perform well on IngramSpark. That's a general rule, and it will sort of apply in majority of cases. Another interesting thing that because there's so much kind of people focused on Amazon, some books perhaps that didn't perform that well because of competition on Amazon will be able to kind of get a second chance, a second shot on IngramSpark, just because IngramSpark is not that popular as Amazon, and having it there can kind of let it have another shot at success and being bought and distributed, and you making your ROI or increasing your ROI on that book. An interesting strategy that I have kind of thought about and considered is what you could actually try to do if you ever see that your IngramSpark book, if there's like a low performing book on Amazon, what you could try to do is actually remove it from Amazon, the paperback version from Amazon, and leave it just on IngramSpark. So if you have one of those books that's doing like 5 sales a month, and it's not really pulling its weight, it's not really performing too well, what you could test out is just having it on IngramSpark. Now, why I kind of mentioned this strategy, because I did notice some books that I had removed off of Amazon and they were only on Ingram, they did somehow perform better than other books on IngramSpark. So I do notice that tendency. My conclusion, or my speculation perhaps we could say why that is because what a lot of the distributors, the people who are buying your book on IngramSpark, some of them are stores and perhaps libraries and whatever else, but some of them are just people who are buying books off of these distribution platforms and putting them up on Amazon and kind of selling them for a profit. And when the two versions of your book aren't really competing with one another, like the one on Amazon and the one on IngramSpark, the thing about the Amazon version is that you're going to be able to price it lower, and the system sort of incentivizes you to do that because of various factors. And not having them compete, not having the lower price book, the lower price Amazon book competing with the higher price IngramSpark book, which is usually going to be the case, just because IngramSpark does charge more per paperback book, and you do need to have a kind of a wholesaler discount. So because of that dynamic, it may make actually in some cases more sense just to have it on IngramSpark. So that's just me working off of the data that I see. I hope that explanation kind of made sense, but again, just have the testing mentality and be open-minded to what can and cannot work. So next up, let's talk a little bit about the optimal kind of setup. How should you price your book? How much should the discount be? And although all of this should be taken with a grain of salt, this is what I found works quite well for us. So for the wholesale discount, it is recommended by IngramSpark that you do 55%. And it probably makes sense because a lot of stores have a lot of costs. They have, like the real estate, the commercial real estate they gotta pay for, employees, and lots of other things. So if you want the major stores, or at least halfway major stores, to buy your book, you do need to have like a good high level discount for them. So if you're doing 20% discount, wholesale discount, it's highly likely that many of the bigger stores won't really see your book. and they won't buy it. It won't come anywhere near their awareness. And so 55% is what I would recommend that you go for exactly that reason. So it's enticing for them as well. As for the pricing, I would say aim for $2 to $6 in royalty. Now, this will go against what other people are saying, like $2, that's too low. But what I have found is important. You shouldn't do like blanket statements like, okay, everybody price your book at $25, at $20, because it's worth it and you should get used to it. That might make a lot of sense in some cases, in like long 300-page, 200-page, like intellectual, like informative and like high value in that sense for those books. But for other books like kids books, coloring books, all those giftable type of holiday, kind of hot during the holidays, those type of products, it doesn't really make much sense to price it that high as like the $20 or like $30, because it just like you have to understand the market dynamics. Like if your book, you don't really have much of a brand, you have a high quality book, but there's not much of a brand behind it, and all the other books are priced at like $10 or $8. For example, if we're talking about coloring books, let's take that as an example. Most of them are like for $5 to $10, and you're all of a sudden doing $22 or $25, and you're wondering why nobody is buying your book, because it's frankly overpriced. So you shouldn't really be dogmatic. That's what I think. You shouldn't be doing this black and white kind of thinking. You should kind of look at the niche and what does it make sense? Where does it make sense to price your book at? Look at other books in your niche, and that's already a great place to start. Next, should you make it refundable? Yes, for sure. It's a great thing to do, because when it's not refundable, you kind of make it harder for your buyers, your wholesale distributors to buy and sell your book, because if there's risk, maybe your book, maybe they think this, I don't know this publisher, I don't know this author, I'm not sure whether it's going to be worth it, whether it's going to be high quality. So just make it risk-free for them, and for sure you'll be able to make more sales by just making the deal, the offer less with less friction, more frictionless. And in my experience, the returns, there are a couple of returns here and there for me, but I found very few returns, because what I would like to assume is that's because most of my books are really high quality, and we do go the extra mile and effort to make sure of that. So they haven't really been much of a thing in my experience. But again, that will be niche dependent. You might have some really scrupulous, people or niches that will return more books. But again, in my experience, it's not really a big deal, so make it refundable. And once again, just keep in mind that none of this should be taken in an absolute way, like as a rule, but this can be starting points. And as I always recommend here on our channel is have a testing mentality and see what works for yourself. One thing that I would really like to direct you guys is to be self-reliant, because this is what works now, this is what makes sense now. But as soon as something changes, if you just follow step-by-step instructions, and as soon as something changes and you don't understand what you're actually doing, why the steps are as they are, you'll be stranded and helpless. You should be kind of self-reliant and have deeper understandings. Another big tip that will really help you is max out your IngramSpark keywords. Amazon KDP only allows us to input like 7 fields. They're pretty long fields, but only 7. But IngramSpark, if I'm not mistaken, they allow 250 characters, and that's a lot of keywords. That's like a really long string of keywords. So I really recommend that you spend a good bit of time really working on your keywords, maximizing them, and going at the keyword and doing your keyword strategy kind of from different angles. And what I mean by that is, let's say the classic example, the keto book. You have a ketogenic diet book, so you target not only like keto book or ketogenic diet, you go after diet books, you go after health books, you go after gifts for men, gifts for women, and Whilst all of these keywords are quite relevant to your keto book, they are all different keywords. So you go at it from different angles. Whilst all of the words, the actual keywords are different here, they all are related to that central point, which is your book, your product. And that's how you can kind of max out your potential traffic for that your book receives from the buyers. So now why don't we take a bit of a look at my dashboard. There might be some interesting things that you might gain, some kind of insights that we could gain perhaps. So there you go, that's the results for December of last year. It was the highest month for IngramSpark just because our VA, she's really cool, has been actively putting up books in various formats, the translations. Half of them do have hardcovers. That's something that we might focus on. And as you can see, yes, for me, a lot of these are at a lower price. I may optimize and see where is a more optimal point. But the reason for having them at a lower price is just that. We're in niches that are where you just cannot get that higher price. Those are a lot of kids books, a lot of coloring books, activity books, and that kind of stuff. So each niche will have its own ups and its own downs. The big up for all of those aforementioned type of niches and books is that they sell like crazy in holiday times, and just now they're just generally pretty hot. But whereas the downside is that they won't perform as well on Ingram. As you can see, like you see here, this one sold like 240 copies. This one's 60. That's really great results for these two specific books. The 80-20 principle applies everywhere, and so does it here. You have these, actually these three books, or perhaps there's something else that I've missed, like maybe this one as well, this 25. These three books make up for like a lot of the sales figures that we see here. The 80-20 principle will apply, almost everywhere. And what you can do is you can just check out and try to figure out why, for example, these performed that well, and try to replicate that success again. As for, this just received one refund out of 240. Who cares? How much did that cost me? $5. Who cares? Contrast that with 500. That's fine. That's 1%. Who cares? It's just a part of business, really, and you shouldn't be afraid of that. Then you see here, this one received more. This one was probably bought in bulk, and it received 11 refunds. Somebody wasn't satisfied with something, and that's fine. The thing is, you don't really see it, but the fact that we made the refunds available, the refunds possible, is probably also why a lot of these other sales happen. You can't really see it directly, but I'm sure of it. It's just, pretty basic psychology. So yeah, this is what the dashboard roughly looks like. This is still a lot less than what we do on Amazon, just because of what our niches are. But it's still a nice kind of diversification from Amazon again. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Like everything I've learned about IngramSpark, all of my insights. As for the sales, you can expect something like some percentage. Let's say on average it could be like anywhere from 5 to 50. That's a huge range, I know, but that's just reality. You can expect something from 5 to 50% of your sales on Amazon. Perhaps on average we could say it could be 20 to 40%. That's probably pretty realistic on average what you can expect IngramSpark to do for your print sales. For ISBNs, do the ISBNs in bulk. Put all of your books in print format on IngramSpark and do it also in hardcover. Find somebody on Upwork or Fiverr to do it for you, and hire a VA and train them to kind of put your books up on IngramSpark, and also register your ISBNs. What sells in a general way is the same as on Amazon. When it comes to uploading, do a lot of keywords, max out your keywords there in that field. You can really put a huge number of keywords in there. And that's how people discover your book. Aim for $2 to $6 in royalty. That's what I would recommend based on your niche. Maybe you can do more. Again, I'm not sure. There's infinite numbers of niches out there. Allow your book to be refundable, and probably do a wholesale discount of 55%. But again, feel free to test everything out for yourself. Now guys, I hope this was helpful, and that's it. I am signing out. and I will see you in another video. Bye.